All right, and welcome to the second ever episode of After the Whistle, a Front Porch Sports podcast. I'm Murray. Before we get into today's episode, I just wanted to say thank you guys. We got 84 views on that first video. I thought it was going to be 50 was my goal, so 84 was really cool to see. Hopefully this one can get 100 or something like that. But thank you to the 84 of you that watched and the 25 of you that subscribed, and we had 4 comments on there as well, all pretty positive feedback. So I do appreciate it. It's good to see that it's doing better than I thought already, although long ways to go. But now into what people care about. On the second episode, we have our first 2 guests ever. So that'll come up in a little bit of the episode. We're going to recap the divisional games, conference title games coming up. This upcoming Sunday should be 2 great games. As far as how did we do this weekend with our picks? Well, we did excellent. I didn't lose a single game. I went 4-0. The Kansas City Chiefs had them teased down to -4. They won by 5. That was a little stressful there when Chad Henne came into the game with Mahomes out. We had them teased with Green Bay down to 1. Green Bay I felt like that was the easiest tease of the weekend. They came out and played really well. The Rams, just not on the same level as Green Bay. And then, what were the other ones? Oh, we had the Bills -2.5. It's good to know that I was right about Lamar Jackson, that he's really not that good, and that he still needs a lot more help around him, because what that Ravens offense brings to the table isn't championship caliber offense outside of him, really. So it'll be interesting to see where they go. And the Bills are just an absolute powerhouse. I mean, Josh Allen is an absolute stud. He won't win the MVP this year because of the year that Rodgers has had, and Mahomes as well. But Josh Allen has been by far the third best quarterback in the league this year, behind those 2 guys. And then they were -2. We had another tease with Green Bay at -1, that being the pick I felt most confident in. Teased with Tampa Bay up to +9. I didn't need the points. We also had Tampa Bay money line. So overall, a great weekend, 4-0. Hopefully some of you listened to those picks and bet accordingly, because you would have made an absolute boatload of money if you wanted to. That's always a good sign. I would have felt really stupid if on my first ever episode I went like 1-3 or 0-4 or something like that. Even 2-2 wouldn't have been great. But yeah, it was pretty solid as far as those picks go. If you don't follow us on Twitter, you definitely should. I tweet out my daily college basketball picks on there. Today is Tuesday. We were down half a unit today, but it's the first losing day in 3 days of winners, and then today. So not the end of the world. We'll get back on it tomorrow, especially because it wasn't a bad loss. So feeling good about that. Been doing some soccer as well. Those picks get tweeted out too. If you don't follow me on the Action Sports Network app, you definitely should as well. The picks are all on there. I would say that you shouldn't download that app unless you're more into gambling, though. It's extremely gambling focused, where the Twitter is more just kind of sports central with picks being tweeted out. But either way, those are 2 great resources where you can find more of our content. I'll have the ats in the description below. But yeah, let's get into those interviews now. All right. For the first time ever in Front Porch Sports and After the Whistle history, we have guests on the show. So please welcome 2 of my dearest friends, Chase Groden and Gene.
Why doesn't Gene get the last name?
Jean-Luc Labadie.
Yeah, that's good. That's better than mine.
That makes it sound much more official. You're right. Alrighty, gentlemen, we are here to recap the lovely divisional round of games. Gene, as a Saints fan, I'm sure you're very enthused for this.
Oh yeah, it was a great time. I had a whole lot of joy.
So we're going to start.
Same
We're just going to
game.
go in order. Rams Packers, the final score 32-18 for Green Bay. Rodgers 23 for 36 passing with 296 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Aaron Jones 14 carries, 99 yards, and a touchdown. And Devontae Adams, who had allegedly the best corner in the league on him, 9 receptions, 66 yards, and a touchdown. What were your guys' immediate takeaways from the game? Was it just Green Bay's too good? What were your thoughts?
You go ahead.
If you can start. Oh, I can start. My first thought was that the Rams defense, which has been very good throughout the entire year, was terrible at stopping big plays. I think to start the second half, Aaron Jones opened up the game with like a 63-yard run. And just in general, when you're playing any team, especially a team as good as the Packers, you can't let those plays happen. And I think there's too many big plays that happened throughout the game. So the Rams weren't left with any chances, especially without the offense producing like they should have.
Absolutely.
You know, as big of a lose-lose for this game is, the one thing that is just great that will just never be said again is that this whole Rodgers has no weapons narrative that we had coming into this year, that's just gone forever, which is nice. But I just don't understand how people, I feel like Devontae Adams has taken it like to a new level to an extent, but he's still been pretty much like this almost the entire time, where just anytime there's someone playing a shutdown corner or any type of big game, I feel like he always shows up and is always a difference maker.
I absolutely agree. With the Rams, you know, their defense was really their whole thing. And I think Donald not being 100% obviously was a huge factor. And I think Jared Goff, I'm not sure where the Rams go from here, because I don't think there's really too much to say about Green Bay. They're good. It was a very typical Green Bay game. They scored points. Their defense played well enough. But if you're the Rams, like, what would you think they have to do to improve? I was just getting some updates today that Goff and McVay need marriage counseling. I thought that was a pretty weird way of them wording it. But if you're the Rams, where do you go from here? Is Goff your answer long term? Are you possibly looking to move on? Because I mean, McVay being such an amazing head coach, you like to think that they don't need that good of a quarterback at the helm, but it kind of seems like, you know, this is right about their ceiling, like a second tier NFC team.
I think they've kind of committed to him, didn't they? I mean, I don't remember what the contract was, but 2 years ago they signed him to a really big contract. And at that point in time, I didn't think they really needed to, but they decided to roll with it. So I mean, that's what they're going with. I don't really think you can move him for what he would need to be moved for, and I don't know who you replace him with. So at least for next year, I think that's what they have to do.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you're kind of stuck with them. I mean, if you look at their best year in recent memory, obviously when they went to the Super Bowl, Jared Goff was still on his rookie contract. So I think that was probably like a difference of like $20 million in cap space that they had available for that time. Obviously, there was players like Todd Gurley putting up unreal numbers throughout the season and a lot of great clicking with the offense that year. But just in general, if you have $20 million less in cap space, your team's not going to be as good as it was. So I think that they're definitely stuck with Goff, and they've committed to the long term. I think it was something like $144 million contract. So it's really just about making it work enough that this really good defense doesn't need to carry the entire weight of the team, because there are just some offenses in the league that are going to be too good.
Well,
as we saw with Green Bay.
I loved seeing that, because I feel like for years the motto in the NFL was like, offense wins games, but defense wins championships. And this just proved that that's absolute horseshit, because Green Bay, by far the better offense, Green Bay, by far the worst defense, went out and just absolutely, this game, I know it was like a 7-point game halfway through the third quarter or something like that, but this game never felt close. No one, I don't think there was really ever a point in the game where anyone was thinking, oh, the Packers could lose this game. Moving on to the Saturday night game in what was a low-scoring affair, when I think most people thought there were going to be some points. The Bills and the Ravens, 17-3 Buffalo wins. Josh Allen, my guy, 23 of 37, 206 yards, 1 touchdown. Stephon Diggs, arguably a top 5, top 3 receiver after the year he's posted so far. 8 receptions, 106 yards, and a touchdown. And the reigning MVP, Lamar Jackson, I know he went out with concussion, 14 of 24, no touchdowns, and a pick 6. Personally, I wasn't surprised by this. I said on the last episode that while I'm not a Lamar Jackson hater, I am a Lamar Jackson doubter. And this kind of proved the doubts to be true. Lamar kind of played like shit. What did you guys think?
I didn't necessarily think he played that bad. I mean, he definitely didn't play up to what, you'd want the former league MVP to play up to. But I think I believe it was 3-10 with, I don't know, 3 minutes left in the third quarter. And then he throws a pick 6, and then the next play, I'm pretty sure he gets concussed, or like within a couple. And so if that's a touchdown, the game's 10-10, and then it's a tie game, and then he's going, and then, you have a quarter left with 2 pretty similar teams that I think it'd be a toss-up. So I thought it was a pretty entertaining game, all things considered, from what you see from the score. We're having a conversation of if it was the best worst game ever or worst best game ever. But I mean, it's what can you do? And then you have the other side with Diggs and Allen, and they're just overwhelming sometimes. It just gets to be a point where you blink and they're just rolling right down the field. Stephon Diggs didn't even feel like he was really doing much, and then I think within the second quarter he had 70-something yards.
He quietly does so well. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, while obviously the pick 6 was definitely one of the daggers for this team and the Bills winning that game, you definitely can't get over the fact that Justin Tucker, one of the best kickers in football history, missed 2 field goals. If they make both of those field goals, I think at one point they would probably be winning, if not very close, even with the pick 6. But it just seemed like one of those days where nothing quite went right for the Ravens. I think they really need to put in a lot of effort next year to find some real dynamic talent to surround Lamar Jackson with. I think he can throw well enough. Obviously, his running's one of the best, or is the best in the league in terms of how it opens up his offense, but there's just not enough talent surrounding him for him to throw to. Mark Andrews has been great in the past few years, but I believe he had a few injuries this year, didn't perform as well. Marquise Brown, very dynamic in theory, but hasn't quite been exactly what I think everyone thought he was going to be coming out of Oklahoma. So it really comes down to finding some people to surround him with and then seeing what we're looking at next year.
That was a absolutely beautiful segue, Gene. My question was, what do you think Baltimore needs to do to get better, to get over this hump? I completely agree with you. I think Lamar just needs some more weapons to throw the ball to. I mean, as much as I like to shit on him for not being able to throw, and he's playing pretty well for a running back, I'd like to agree that, if he was throwing to Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, he'd probably be putting up some pretty impressive numbers. So I think that is a pretty safe call that the offense needs to improve. And the defense really isn't, I mean, I don't think it's top 5 in the league, but it's certainly not bad. It's above average.
No, yeah, it's totally fine. I think I have something written down pretty similar where I just kind of I tie it back to like the early years of the Seattle team where, Russell was obviously much less of a runner, but he still was primarily a runner almost in a way in his first couple of years. And then they've transitioned almost completely into like purely passing team just by getting more and more weapons. And then you can kind of, if Russell started here and is now here, Lamar can start here and it can now be here. With if you go get him like you sign Allen Robinson in free agency, maybe you trade for Odell Beckham. You never know. You never know what you can go get.
That is a beautiful segue. Speaking of Odell Beckham, his team in action Sunday morning. Chiefs 22, Browns 17. I had Kansas City -4 in my teaser, and let me tell you, I was shitting my pants when I saw Chad Henne walk onto the field. Baker, Gene, I know you're a big Baker guy. He had a pretty solid game, 23 of 37, 204, a touchdown and a pick. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt had 19 carries for 101 yards and a touchdown. And then over on the Kansas City side, Patty Mahomes, 21 of 30, 255 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and a concussion. Damian Williams, 13 rushes for 78 yards. And then Travis and Tyreek both had 8 receptions for a little over 100 yards and a touchdown. Before we get into Mahomes, what did you guys think of Stefanski punting the ball there on 4th and 9 with 3 minutes or so left in the game? I know he was in his own territory, but personally, I hated the call because either way, they pick up a first down and it's game over, or 2 first downs, whatever it ends up being. And I get, you don't want to put them in a good position to score, but assuming you can keep them out of the end zone, a field goal makes it an 8-point game. That's still 1 possession. So I just wanted to get your guys' take. What did you think of that punt? Because I thought it was just a cowardice move.
I would have done it. I personally would have done it. I think if if we look at how it played out, you have Chad Henne, right? Who at that point, I think this was after he threw that interception to nobody, which I don't know what he was doing there.
Pass in history.
So then in your mind, you're thinking to yourself, God, I'm from Miami. I love Chad Henne. Chad Henne was he's just one of those guys, right? They're just random guys that you're just like, oh, Chad, yeah. And good example. Chad Henne needs to scramble for 14 yards to get a first down. So I mean, that's not on the punt. That's not on the punting. That's on the defense for not somehow allowing Chad Henne to scramble for 14 yards and then roll out on a dime to Tyreek Hill to finish the game. What can you do?
Yeah, I agree. At the end of the day, when Chad you're coming in, you're playing the backup quarterback at the time, you have to put trust in the defense at some point. And in all scenarios, that defense should have made the stop, and they were very close to making that stop. So I don't think it's necessarily the wrong call. Versus, it ended up being just delaying the loss by another 2 or 3 minutes. But if you don't get 4th and 9, which is really a long 4th down to convert, the game's just over right then and there. So I think that's the call you have to make if you're Kevin Stefanski.
And then on the other side of the head coaching, Andy Reid, arguably the biggest testicles of any mammal on earth. I mean, 4th and inches. You think at that point you just run the QB sneak, or you give the ball to Damian, who had a solid game, but he trusts this motherfucker to roll out and throw. Tyreek was wide open. Give him credit for that. But I mean, good God, what a play call by Andy Reid. And I think if you're the Browns, you got to look at this season as a success still. I mean, Browns fans might feel like they should have won that game considering Chad Henne was the quarterback for, the last quarter or so. But Baker is obviously the guy for the future. And I think you have a solid enough offense. I mean, you got 2 amazing running backs. Who knows if they keep Odell? They really didn't seem to need him. Trade him for maybe some more pieces. But I think if you're the Browns, you got to look at the season as a win.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's nothing but positivity coming into next year. Obviously, there's a lot of holes or a lot of things that they need to work on coming into the next season. I think the run game is really strong. Keeping Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb in there be a great thing to take the load off of Baker. I think when you look at it last year, a lot of Baker's picks and mistakes that were from him really trying to do too much on that offense when he was still just a sophomore in the league, which is nothing easy to do at that time. So I think making sure that you can establish that run game throughout the rest of the next season and making things as easy as possible for Baker to succeed is definitely going to be the key for them succeeding in the future.
So what do you do as I'm forgetting what the GM's name is, but you're sitting there in your office and you have Kevin Stefanski and you have the owner in there. You go, okay, so now what's the plan with Baker, right? Because I think the Browns pretty much are on a trajectory of a Super Bowl. I really don't think they have to change anything much more. I think next year they could be the Bills of this year. And then the year after that, they could very easily well be the Super Bowl favorites. But what are you trying to sign Baker to a 5th year? Are you trying to extend him now? Are you trying to do nothing? What's the goal here?
I think you got to talk to him and kind of see what he's feeling, because
I think obviously the defense, especially the secondary, needs a lot of help if they're going to contend, because you got to assume that they're going to have to beat Kansas City and Buffalo or one of the two on the way to the Super Bowl next year. So I think you kind of talk to Baker. I think he knows it. They want him to be the quarterback of the future there. But at the same time, maybe you go out, spend a little bit this off season and beef up that secondary and then sign him after that maybe. But I agree. That's a tough question to see how they're going to manage their money with a clear franchise quarterback.
I think at the end of the day, the fifth-year option is absolutely the way to go, and then work on signing a contract. It doesn't even have to be this off season, but next off season. Obviously, the longer you wait, the more leverage Baker's going to have in the situation. But it seems to me like both sides seem very motivated to keep him in Cleveland. So I'd like to think that not necessarily a team-friendly deal, but a deal that's not without reason. Because obviously, I think he's very promising young quarterback, but the stats for a league resetting contract and the likes of like Mahomes and Watson's just isn't there yet.
So what do
Obviously,
you
you're
sign
kind
up
of
for?
playing. I think this team option his fifth-year option would bring him up to like 15 million for the second year, but I think he's definitely around the like $25 million a year range. I mean, you look at that's what Drew Brees, Tom Brady were both playing for that amount of money this year. But once you get into like the 30s, you're looking at like a Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers type. I think Ryan Tannehill's deal would be pretty similar to what Baker should be expecting.
I
think
agree.
he's like 27 million.
I don't think you can pay him over 30.
Don't you think? I have it written down that I would pay him like 32 or 34 because I see no way that he could ever sign for 25. I think he would literally force his way out if they even offered him that, because Mahomes and Watson are at 40 and 42, I think, at this point, or maybe even more than that.
So
but I don't see any way that he signs for almost half of that.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a tricky situation. I think I agree with Gene that I think both sides want to keep him there. I think he wants to stay there. I think they obviously want him to stay there. I mean, he's a stud. There's really no two ways about it. And in a league where you obviously need quarterbacks to win, they have the foundations of building something really special there. So I think they're going to do whatever it takes to keep him. The other quarterback in this game, Patrick Mahomes, leaves the game with a concussion, does not return. After seeing the play a couple of times, I mean, he didn't really hit his head that hard. And then you're hearing stuff today that it was a pinched nerve or something like that, which truthfully, if I'm a Chiefs fan, scares me more because that sounds like something that is just like he gets hit in the back and it could happen again type of thing if it's irritated. So I think we're all assuming he's going to play Sunday. I don't really see any way. I think the NFL would just kind of force him to almost. I mean, Goodell he's the worst human on earth and he just cares about money, not the league or the health of his players. So he's going to make him go out there unless Mahomes like literally says, I don't want to. I see no way he doesn't play.
I think they've made it clear that they've gone through very deep depths to show that everything that involves this decision is not related to the NFL. Like it's all private organizations who are in charge of the health and safety of the players in concussion protocol. So while I think they're going through lengths to say that they aren't involved, but I agree. At the end of the day, Mahomes is now the face of the NFL, and you can't have him not play in the AFC Championship game.
You can't have Chad Henne be a starting quarterback in that game.
Exactly. But on saying it's a pinched nerve, I've had a pinched nerve every once in a while. I was never falling down to the ground without control of my body after pinching a nerve. So I think it's definitely going to be a concussion if he's out for any reason, not out for any pinched nerve or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, he looked like big dead, like on the field. Like he looked rattled. He looked fucked up. His eyes, he just looked lost. He didn't even know what state he was in. He didn't know he was playing football anymore.
Yeah, it's just not going to matter if we're being honest. Like he's going to play. That's going to be the end of it. I think more so concerning is just the fact that I feel like Chad Henne coming in and proving that he just won that game means that not only have we now been shown that the Chiefs have the best quarterback in the league, maybe ever, they also have probably the best weapons in the entire league. Also, just if we were trying to make sure that it wasn't like a Julius Thomas effect,
Right.
like it's not. So that's even more concerning for the league for the next 15 years, unless you live in Kansas City. But that's just how it goes. It's their turn, I guess.
Speaking of great quarterbacks, to end the divisional round, we had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Saints, 30-20 for Tampa. Brady, 18 of 33, 199 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Playoff Lenny Fournette, I like that nickname. They really threw that at us. I had never heard that before. And Ronald Jones, 30 carries, 125 yards. On the other side, Drew Brees, 19 of 34, 134 yards, a touchdown, but 3 interceptions. And Alvin Kamara, 18 carries and 85 yards. So I think the biggest takeaway, I don't think Tampa looked great. I think they were kind of just the beneficiaries of sad old man Drew Brees. Obviously one of the all-time greats. He's a top 10 quarterback, no doubt. Gene, for you, before we get into the game, you got to assume he's going to retire. And as a Saints fan, do you think in like a couple of years, you're going to look back at this and be like, we only won 1 Super Bowl in all those years? Because it seems like, he was always one of those guys, and they got hosed in a couple of games. Alex Smith leads a game-winning drive for the Niners to beat them. And you have the Beast Quake and the Minneapolis Miracle and that horrendous a horrendous no call against the Rams. Like, all of these just kind of freak plays. And, I think if you ask the common fan, like, how many Super Bowls do you think Drew Brees won? I feel like most would probably say like 3 or something like that. So do you think you're going to look back on it and not necessarily like a taint of his legacy, but just be like, damn, only 1?
I think there were definitely a lot of missed opportunities for this Saints team to almost be essentially the other dynasty versus the Patriots. I think you put them in that Rams in place of the Rams. I definitely think they would have played better than the Rams did in that game. That was a horrible showing from the Super Bowl. But again, it's been a lot of tough breaks, but all of them are outside of the no call. It's a lot of created by their own doing. And I wouldn't say really any of them were Drew's fault, but it's definitely one of those things where there was a lot of missed opportunities for the Saints to come away with a lot more than they ended up doing. I think before this playoff series ended, their last 5 playoff series had been decided on the very last play of the game. So that doesn't happen usually, especially 5 straight in a span of 8 years, considering they missed the playoffs for 2 or 3 years in a row for a little bit. But no, it was a lot of missed opportunity. I don't think this will taint his career. I think all the records are there, and I think it's almost like there'll be an asterisk that it's like 1-1, probably could have had 2 at least.
Right. And I think it's kind of, none of us are Colts fans, obviously, but I wonder if you talk to a Colts fan, if they kind of felt the same way about having Peyton for all those years. Like, him and Tony were such like a dynamic duo and stuff like that, as far as like coaching quarterback tandems go. And, they went to 2, but to only win 1, obviously losing to the Saints in the other. It's not one of those things that I think you really think about, but it's just like, after the fact, it could be lingering. However, if Jameis Winston is the route they choose to go in the future, what a play by him.
Yeah, but they won't, because he's too proud. Sean Payton is just too proud of a guy. So unless you decide to fire him, Taysom Hill's going under center because he said Taysom Hill is my guy, and I've groomed him, and that's what we're doing. We're gonna go 1-15, and we're gonna do it in style.
And then no catches for Michael Thomas. Do we credit that to? I feel like he's had a very dysfunctional year as a whole, but also Drew kind of being old and washed looking in the game. And then I think Tampa, I mean, they did a solid enough job defensively. So I think that was a big point of the game. Do you think that Michael Thomas is on the Saints for the next 2 seasons?
No.
I don't either.
I think with his contract, I think these are paying him $20 million a year. I think it's going to be very hard to move him anywhere. I definitely don't think they're going to cut him. That's going to be a huge salary hit for a few years in that case. And this team has too much talent on there between the defense and the offense, even without Drew Brees next year, if that's the case, to start a rebuild. And while I'll agree Michael Thomas did not have the best year, especially after like with all the drama between the coaches and playing staff and 0 catches in the Bucks game, I think the fact that he's shown so much potential and shown so much excellence in like last season, it will really come down to finding a QB between Jameis or Winston, or maybe even a third person if they want to bring in somebody that really meshes with Michael Thomas, because you're paying him too much money to have a quarterback that doesn't mesh with Michael Thomas.
Well,
who is it though?
I think they need to bring someone in, because I completely agree with you. That team does have too much talent to go through a rebuild. I mean, I feel bad saying this about Drew Brees, but he wasn't like a competent quarterback in this game. If you have even a game manager, I think if you plug Kirk Cousins into this game, you have a chance of winning. I think if Jameis played, they would have had a chance of winning. So I don't know who it is, like you were asking. I don't think they necessarily draft anyone. I don't know if they try to. I mean, obviously a trade would really be the other route to go, but I think that they're a team where they literally are a quarterback away from like winning the Super Bowl, not just from being a contender, like being in the Super Bowl.
I give Dak all of the money in the world. I say, Dak, you're coming here today. Like, we're gonna have a meeting, and you're not leaving this meeting without signing a piece of paper.
That's an absolutely great idea. And he went to school in Mississippi. I don't know if he's from the South, but maybe he grew up a Saints fan or something like that.
I think that's a great option. I think you definitely need to see what you have with Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill taking first team snaps throughout the training camp. I also think obviously the cost would be very high, but Deshaun Watson, very motivated to move, it seems like. I've heard reports that he's no longer even talking to the organization.
Right, he's not even picking up the phone right now.
Yeah, so I believe the Texans would be very much motivated to move him. I would preferably not like to see a lot of players moved for Deshaun Watson, but I mean, I would give up 5 first-round draft picks to have Deshaun Watson on that team.
But you're going back and forth. You're saying bring in Taysom and Jameis for first team reps, and then you're saying Dak would be a good idea. But then there's Deshaun Watson. So you gotta commit though. You gotta commit by by April, May.
Oh, I'm saying these are all options. Obviously, if you're going to trade for Deshaun Watson, it's going to be before the draft. So at that time, because if they don't trade him before the draft, they're not going to trade him throughout the offseason, I would assume. So at that point whether Deshaun Watson's even a reasonable option for that, and then you see what you're looking at in training camp between the two, because these are all just 3 options, but I would go for the Deshaun Watson route personally. I think he's a generational talent at QB. Pairing him with Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, and a Saints defense that through the last half of the season was one of the top units in the league, I think it'd be pretty hard to not imagine them making a run at a few Super Bowls.
Absolutely. And then if we look at Jameis's former team and his successor in Tampa, Thomas Edward Patrick Brady, 43 years old, headed back to his 14th title game in 19 years. I saw a stat today that it is more likely that Tom Brady will go to a title game at the start of the year than LeBron James to make a free throw. Quite the stat as a Brady lover and a LeBron hater. I mean, the numbers aren't impressive. Under 200 yards, 18 for 33. That's, a little over 50% completion. But I mean, it was just the plays that mattered. Like that 3rd and 11, he hits that 5th round rookie on a out route. Just, I mean, how does he? I know this is being a Brady guy. You guys are probably sick of me hearing this, but how does he do it? How does he still do it at 43? Like as good as anyone out there right now.
I don't know. You just make it work. I don't like. I mean, you just gotta. I think he was. You said just a couple minutes ago. You said the Saints would have been competing and maybe would have won with a competent quarterback. That's what he was. He was a competent quarterback. He won the game off of a defense that had a really good scheme against the Saints, and he made plays when he needed to make plays. I don't know if that'll hold up next week. I know the defense won't hold up next week, but it was good to see. It was a cool game.
I think I'm not sure about the 4th turnover, but 3 out of the 4 turnovers resulted in the Buccaneers getting the ball on the Saints half of the field, some of which I think were within the 30-yard line or close. When you get essentially 3 drives that start in the red zone, you have no excuse for scoring and putting up enough points to win a game, no matter who you're facing. So I think I think there are a lot of times when people incorrectly say that, like, oh, it wasn't that this team won, it's that the other team lost it. But I think in this case, the Saints, between the 4 turnovers, and letting the run game be as productive as it was, considering how good the Saints have been against the run, the Saints absolutely lost that game more so than any Tampa Bay player necessarily won it. I mean, Jared Cook fumbles at like the 50-yard line. You can't do that.
It was the momentum,
especially in the playoffs. Right, yeah, when it's a tied game with like 20 minutes left in the entire game, Drew Brees threw a pass to Alvin Kamara, who wasn't even looking. That got picked off. It was just a lot of mistakes that piled up to the point where the Saints weren't able to overcome all of the mistakes that they made throughout that game.
Yeah,
who wouldn't have thrown that pass to Alvin Kamara? Alex Smith. I'm just gonna put that out there. It's not about that. Just now said he wants
Alex
to keep
Smith
playing.
Can't throw that far.
Three of Tampa's scoring drives came and covered 66 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I think that we definitely have 2 very interesting conference title games ahead of us. Thank you, gentlemen, for being the first ever guests on this show. I'm sure you guys will be appearing again in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. You gentlemen have a great night.
You too.
Big thank you to Gene and Chase for that nice little episode worth of content they gave us. They're going to be on a lot more of the time. Hopefully when COVID and everything is over, we don't have to do it over Zoom. I think it'll be a little more fun, a little more informal. But that was fantastic for our first guest, so big shout out to them. I really appreciate it. I think it's nice to have people other than me sitting here talking. I know I said this on the last episode, but I feel like me just talking for 40 minutes, or this might be a little longer than 40 minutes today, but however long it ends up being, can get a bit ridiculous and long. So getting into some other news that has happened today, being Tuesday, just found out Tiger Woods had his 5th back surgery today. It was to fix a pinched nerve, which is funny because we were talking about pinched nerves with Mahomes. So for those of you who don't know, I'm a huge Tiger guy. Golf is more fun when Tiger's competing. That Masters that he won a couple years ago was the greatest golf moment of my life. I think a lot of people agree with that. Anyone that's a Tiger fan will. So I think the biggest hope right now is that he's back for the Masters, because, again, that's coming up in April, and the Masters with Tiger is just so much better. So if you're a golf person, that'll mean something to you. If you're not, you probably don't give a shit. But would love to see him get back out there. I am a little worried that this could be the end. I mean, 5 back surgeries, especially where, he is older, and there's a lot of young golfers that are playing so well right now that even if he is 100% healthy, I don't ever think he's the favorite to win a tournament or anything like that. So hopefully he can get healthy, get right, but I am a little concerned that this could be the last we saw of Tiger Woods. So we'll see. Hopefully I'm wrong and just getting like a little caught up in the moment. Looking over at the NBA, this James Harden trade really seems to be going well for the Nets. He's dropped over 30 in both of the games he's played with them. They beat the Bucks last night. He missed the 3 but got a huge offensive rebound, kicked it to KD, who splashed it. That team's looking really good right now. It'll be interesting. Kyrie's supposed to come back later this week for their game against the Cavs. So to see the 3 of them on the court at the same time will be very interesting. Kyrie issued like an apology type. I mean, as apologetic as Kyrie Irving is going to get today for just about how he'd been absent and things like that. And he seemed excited to get back into it. So I feel pretty confident that it's going to work out for them, and that team is going to be the wagon we all think they are. Speaking of wagons, Alabama basketball. No one ever really thinks about it because Alabama football is the big deal, but in college basketball in general right now, they're looking like one of the hottest teams. Had a huge win over LSU tonight, not in the sense that it was like a big win, but just the margin of victory was very large. So it'll be interesting to see. I think this year in college basketball, Gonzaga and Baylor are really in a league of their own. But then after that, you got a bunch of just really solid teams. So we're going to get some more college basketball talk coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Not too much until football's over, though. Football's definitely going to be taking center stage up until the Super Bowl, which is the first week of February. I want to say the 3rd the game is. I'm not 100% sure on that. I think that's all I got for you guys today. Going to try to get another one of these out on Friday. We're going to have another guest on there, so that should be exciting. We're going to keep just kind of bringing in a couple of guys. I think the more guests I bring in, the more comfortable it'll be doing over Zoom. It can just improve the overall quality of this. I saw one of the comments who said they wanted to get this on Spotify. I'll be honest, I don't know how to do that, but it's something I can definitely look into doing if that is something that you guys would want to do. Leave some comments of like suggestive and constructive criticism, how you think things could be better, what you're liking, what you don't like, and stuff like that. Because obviously I do this because I like it, but I also want it to be good and successful. So feedback from you guys allows it to get better and to be more successful and whatnot. So hit me with it. I mean, don't be an asshole or anything like that. But if you're just like, oh, hey, like you could have done this a little differently, I definitely appreciate that. I'm going to try to get a little better at the editing because this whole iMovie thing that I did on the last one I thought looked a little goofy, but it worked for what it was. It's Tuesday night right now, so I'm going to try to get this up and posted by midnight tonight, so that should be good to go. You want to watch this, it'll probably be Wednesday morning for most of you when you watch this, but I appreciate it and have a good one.